Do you know how to engage Gen Z? They're the newest spenders, aged 14 to 29. Do you have a strategy to encourage their loyalty? Because right now, they're not disloyal, they're just not playing the game. They're not behaving like the customers most retail strategies were built for. And that's a big mistake a lot of businesses are making right now, is that interpreting that behaviour through an outdated lens. I'm Claire Bailey, the Retail Champion, and this is Retail Reckoning. This episode is part 2 of a 3-part miniseries, and I've called it The Loyalty Illusion. And in the last episode, we challenged something quite fundamental. What we call loyalty today often isn't loyalty at all. It's kind of a consumer behaviour that's been heavily influenced by systems, things like apps, offers, and incentives. If you haven't listened to that, please do go back because it sets this series up quite well. Essentially, what I've said in that episode is once we all accept that loyalty is being engineered by systems and forcing behaviours, we have to then ask ourselves something of a bigger question. And the question is, have customers changed as well? And I think we all know the answer is yes. Quite a great deal, and really quite quickly. The group where this is most obvious and also most misunderstood probably is Gen Z. They're the current and future spenders, the 14 to 29-year-olds. And let's face it, most of the senior management and board level decision makers in retail are not in that age group. So it's not really surprising that the strategies are at discord with the new wave of customers. And Gen Z are not behaving like the customers that those strategies were built for. That leaves us in a bit of a pickle. How on earth are we going to interpret these behaviours when we've got an outdated expectation of what is, I guess, the word normal, if there is such a thing, but the normal that fits with maybe boomers, Gen X, and so on. So we have to start really thinking about what next. Oh, and just as I said at the beginning, as a reminder, this is only part 2 of a 3-part series, and in the final episode, I will bring this all together and look at what really builds connection right now, because that's the bit that's going to matter commercially. Back to the point. So I want to dig a bit deeper into Gen Z behaviours. And they're often described as disloyal, and I think that's a bit unfair. You hear it all the time. Oh, but they don't stick, they don't commit, they switch, they jump around, they're very difficult to interpret, yeah, blah, blah, blah. That's not quite right. I don't think they're disloyal, but they're not attached. Yes, they switch easily. They're constantly exploring, doom scrolling on TikTok, but they're also comparing almost instinctively because these are a generation that never lived without the internet and access to all that information. They do all this without hesitation, without friction. It's just the way they are. And the world that they shop in and choose to consume in is completely different to that which anybody probably over 40 would imagine. Their discovery is not search-driven, it's algorithm-driven. Choice seems to be endless, and from all angles. It's on social, it's on search, it's even on AI. And they also have instant access because I can't think of a single 14 to 29-year-old who doesn't own a mobile device. So, be honest, loyalty as previous generations, and that includes me and probably many of the people listening, as previous generations understood it, loyalty is not their default setting. And that's where businesses have sort of not quite caught up. They're not really playing the game, are they? Because our loyalty strategies are still built on the underlying assumption that customers will choose a brand. If they enjoy it and have a good experience, they'll stay with it. And over time, they'll build a relationship and they'll become advocates and they won't hesitate to go back to that brand. They won't shop around. They won't go somewhere else. That's how it always was. And Gen Z aren't like that. They test things out, they have a go, they sample things, and then they move on because maybe it didn't quite hit the mark. I'm sure they can be loyal to some brands if the testing, sampling, and experience was on point, but they tend to be a little bit more quick to move. And I don't think it's because they don't care. It's almost, considering my Gen Z kids, they don't really stay still. There's always another option. There's always, another recommendation or another video saying this is the best. this is the greatest. And they see influencers and they can click through from a video and buy something just like that. And I think the other thing is, with such content, there's always something new being surfaced to them that catches their attention. And that means that they don't need to be brand loyal, unless the brand's TikTok, I suppose, or similar. And they just, they don't stay still. So that doesn't mean they're disloyal. It means they're efficient. They're making decisions in the moment based on what's in front of them and not what they've historically chosen, with the exclusion of certain situations. I know for a fact that they can become very brand loyal to certain restaurants or bars because they like the food or the experience or somebody they know works there. But when it comes to consuming product, they have a completely different way of interacting with retail. And that's in part as a result of things like AI and algorithms. Because layering that into the equation, that's where the reason that these things are being surfaced to them to inspire them to buy has shifted quite dramatically. Because as customers, they are no longer discovering brands in the way that they used to do. It's not like walking down the high street, seeing a window or seeing a TV ad or even doing a Google search. It's being pushed. They're not necessarily even searching at all. They're just being shown. It's almost impulse type behaviour than intentional behaviour. And they're not just being shown once, they're being shown continuously. And what they're being shown, because of the clever algorithms that have been developed by social media platforms and search engines and all those other tools and technologies, they're based on behaviour, they're based on known preferences, they're based on patterns. And there's some argument to say that even if you talk about something, suddenly a sponsored ad pops up in your feed and you think, I was just talking about that. That one's the alarming one. But I'm not sure if it's true or a conspiracy theory, but is our phone listening to us? Is Alexa listening to us? But anyway, with all of this being shown and being pushed, that is based on algorithm-driven relevancy, two things can happen. The first is that what I would term brand memory weakens. I've already forgotten who I bought from last week because this inspirational product's just appeared in my feed. And customers, therefore, aren't actively recalling brands. They're reacting to, I guess, what's put in front of them, the push, not the pull again. And then secondly, that means that to be visible digitally and with physical presence, potentially physically, but digitally particularly, becomes even more important than loyalty. So I'd say that if you're not in front of the customer at the exact moment when they're looking around or just scrolling, and the algorithms aren't picking your content up as relevant and pushing it to them, you're not going to be in their decision-making criteria. And that is a really, really different competitive landscape, because this isn't about competing on brand or product or service or experience or value or anything that we would have considered part of our positioning and competitive advantages before. It's now a competition about presence and visibility. Then we have to think about another layer. Gamification has become really big. There's the spin to win, instant rewards, unlock streaks, you name it.
Free spin.
Ads within mini games, and it's everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. They are incredibly effective, and particularly with Gen Z. The reason they're effective, I suppose, is because it's interactive, it's fun, it's instant most of the time, and it's got very low commitment levels. So you don't have to sort of buy into it. It's just that moment of joy for people thinking, oh, look at that. I've spun the wheel and I've won £1 off my next shop, or I've won £100 or whatever. But it's the possibility that gamification brings and the excitement factor that locks people in and creates, I guess, habits. And yeah, gamification drives engagement and it does keep people coming back. But that's confusing what's going on. That's not necessarily building loyalty. It is driving interaction, which is good. We all want that as businesses. But that's not the same as attachment. because a customer can engage frequently, but still feel very little connection to the brand and therefore isn't necessarily loyal. And I think that's still where quite a lot of businesses are misreading what's truly happening, because yes, engagement's important, and yes, engagement and interaction will help increase sales and will increase repeat business. But it means that until something better comes along, they're sort of pseudo-loyal. The minute something better comes along, a more fun game or better rewards, they hop off to the next one, which is why it's not the same as attachment. So, to wrap up, this is the shift. I don't think Gen Z are specifically rejecting retail, but they are rejecting retail that was designed for previous generations. They seem to be changing the way that they interact with product businesses in particular and how they buy. So if the business model assumes customers will stay if we reward them, then that's already a bit out of date, because behaviour is now apparently being shaped by systems, but discovery is being driven by algorithms. And that leads to the bigger question, I suppose. If loyalty is being engineered, and if behaviour is influenced by external factors, what actually creates the real connection? Well, I'm not going to answer that today, because that's exactly what I'm going to do in the final episode of this 3-part mini-series. And that's the bit that really matters. I guess it's not how you drive behaviour, but how you build something that lasts beyond it. If you want to have a look at this for your own business and get a head start on episode 3, you can download my free Loyalty Illusion Guide from retailchampion.co.uk/retail-playbooks, because that sums up all 3 episodes in a single free downloadable resource. Otherwise, thank you for listening. I'm Claire Bailey, the Retail Champion, and this has been Retail Reckoning. See you for part 3.